What's up, everybody? Welcome back to part 3 of my John Farrick book review, Wrecking Crew, Demolishing the Case Against Stephen Avery. First, I just want to say I hope everyone had a happy holidays, whatever it is you celebrate. I hope you're able to spend it with some family, some friends, some loved ones, despite everything that's going on in the world right now. I hope you're able to get together and have a good time over the last couple of days. But let's jump right into part 3. This part starts out with Stephen Avery having a phone call with his sister Barb that took place on October 24th, 2017. The phone call was mostly about what was found on the Dassey computer. Now, Barb lied during this phone call with her brother Stephen Avery, stated there was nothing on the computer and that they didn't even have internet access at that time. Of course, she is just trying to cover up for her son, Bobby Dassey. She has one son that, as of right now, has been in prison for 16 years for a crime he didn't commit, and another son who is quite possibly the person that did the crimes, allegedly out and free. I don't know how you handle this situation at all. It would definitely has to be the most difficult situation one could come across. I mean, you have one son that's innocent and one son that's probably guilty, allegedly, but the one son that's innocent is in prison and the other one is out free. What do you do? I don't know. Now, if you're unfamiliar, this computer, the Dassey computer, was used to search some horrible, awful images and everything. Just absolutely disgusting things were searched on this computer, and at times when Bobby Dassey was home alone. It's also noted that someone tried to delete evidence off the computer before the computer was seized on April 21st, 2006. But we will get into more of that here in a little bit. Kathleen Zellner states that not only did Barb attempt to have someone delete evidence off the computer, but Bobby also stated that he saw Teresa Halbach leave the Avery property that day, and she used both of those things to try to get Stephen Avery a new trial at the time, to try to get him a new evidentiary hearing. Also, during that same phone call on October 24th, 2017, both Barb and Scott Tadek stated that Teresa Halbach left the Avery property that day. Now, this call was an extremely heated argument, a three-way heated argument between Barb, Scott, and Stephen Avery. I think a lot of it was in one of the episodes of Making a Murderer, and it just went off the rails really quick, showing you what type of temper Scott Tadek actually had. I mean, he says some crazy things during this phone call. Check it out on Making a Murderer. John goes into it very deeply into the book, word for word, pretty much what was said during this conversation, and it's absolutely crazy. And also during that call, Stephen Avery mentioned that Bobby didn't testify to seeing Teresa Halbach leave the Avery property that day, even though that he says he saw Teresa Halbach leave the property that day, and his brother Brian said that Bobby told him that he saw Teresa leave the property that day, and he was the state's star witness, and he was clearly lying on the witness stand. Kathleen Zellner also states there is no credible explanation that has ever been provided by the state as to why Teresa Halbach's bones would be in the Dassey burn barrel if Stephen Avery had burned her whole body in his own burn pit. John talks about how Brad Dassey states that Barb hired someone to reformat the computer to get what was on it off the computer, trying to delete, of course, the images and the searches that she knew was on there. Man, I could not imagine knowing that my son is searching these stuff. Maybe she didn't know, and then when she found out, she tried to delete it, or did she know the entire time what was being searched on that computer? I don't know if that's ever been explained, if she knew the whole time, or if she just found out afterwards. Brad states that Barb was trying to delete evidence relevant to the Teresa Halbach murder. Brad was interviewed about this, but neither side called him as a witness, which is crazy if you ask me. He would have completely nullified Bobby Dassey's testimony, leaving the state's star witness, what he said would have been meaningless, and this case could have taken an entirely different turn. John then gives the dates that deletions were made from the computer, but even with the deletions, there were items recovered on the computer that shows a very, very dark side to Bobby Dassey. John talks about how 12 years after Teresa Halbach's death, Gary Hunt, the person that was examining the computer, found new information that was not known to Stephen Avery's original trial attorneys, Dean Strang and Jerry Buting. Now, I did review Jerry Buting's book as well. There's a playlist of that if you're interested in checking that out. But it also wasn't known to the producers of Making a Murderer at the time. It was not discovered until 2017. John talks about how the searches were made under a different account on the same computer, a different profile. You know how you can have your account and someone else can have another account? This account showed absolutely terrible things were searched on this computer. The worst of the worst. John lists them all in the book starting on page 67. I'm not going to go over them because it's absolutely terrible. It's absolutely disgusting. It was painful enough to read, let alone speak about. So if you're interested, page 67 of Wrecking Crew goes over it all. John talks about how Mark Weirgert and Thomas Fassbender got fresh DNA samples from Stephen Avery, even though they already had his DNA from the 1985 case. Why did they need it again? You know, perhaps they needed it to plant it somewhere. They couldn't just go take Stephen Avery's DNA samples from the 1985 case from wherever they were at the time. So if they were allegedly going to plant DNA, they needed to have fresh samples, and that's what a lot of people think they allegedly did that day. This was done on November the 9th, 2005. They picked Stephen Avery up at his home and brought him to the hospital so the tests could be done. Now, Stephen Avery states the nurse took 2 swabs near his groin, then handed them to Mark. He states he saw Mark pretend to throw the samples out in a waste paper basket, but he never saw the samples enter the waste paper basket. Now, that might sound weird as to why it was done and as to why they were immediately allegedly thrown out, but not really thrown out allegedly. It's stated because they weren't supposed to actually have those samples taken. The search warrant did not allow for them to take those groin samples from Stephen Avery, so when they were taken, they were allegedly handed to Mark Weirgert, who allegedly threw them out. Allegedly, but Stephen Avery states he didn't actually throw them out, so Mark pretended to throw them out. Now, could all this be part of the plan because they needed something to plant? They needed some DNA of Stephen Avery's to plant, and this was the only way to go about getting it. Accidentally take it and then pretend, I don't know why, and then pretend to throw them out. It definitely adds up, because why would the nurse take them if it wasn't on the search warrant? She would have had to have been asked to take them. And then Mark Weirgert pretends to throw them out, and that's why Stephen Avery's DNA was found on the car. This is all allegedly, of course, but it definitely adds up. And the nurse in her report never mentions disposing of the groin swabs. There's so much bonker things going on in this case. How, at the very least, Kathleen Zellner has never been able to get an evidentiary hearing or any type of hearing whatsoever is absolutely insane. They're clearly covering it up because the state made so many mistakes. The police made so many mistakes in this case that at the very least they need to hear everything that the state did wrong in the collecting of evidence, the way people were questioned. Brendan Dassey's statement needs to be looked at over and over and over and over again. There's no way that that should have been ever used for anything ever. Just crazy. It's absolutely insane. It just goes to show the level of cover-up that is going on in this case. If you ask me, that's my opinion. Allegedly. Well, that's where I'm going to end part 3 of John Farrick's Wrecking Crew, my book review, Demolishing the Case Against Stephen Avery. You can pick this book up on Amazon. That's where I got it. I hope everybody's having a great day, and I'll see you again soon with part 4.